Andrew, live on air.
Thank you. Welcome to the April 21st, 2021 meeting of the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District Board of Trustees.
I don't think their mic's on. Is it on?
It is on. Is it, can you guys hear me?
Rory, I don't know if you can turn up the house speakers just a touch. That'd be great.
Okay. If we could.
You are broadcasting.
Okay.
So, yeah.
If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The board did meet in closed session this evening, and we did take action this evening in closed session. The board voted to approve a settlement agreement resolving a dispute with Raymond Brothers Construction regarding disputed claims involving the district's Truckee High School modernization project. Under the settlement agreement, the district will pay Raymond Brothers Construction $285,000 as full and final payment to resolve the disputed claims. The district and Raymond Brothers will release any and all claims against each other related to the project. The settlement is a compromise of disputed issues and is not an admission of any liability or wrongdoing by either party. Okay. This evening's agenda, Superintendent Geisels, any changes to this evening's agenda?
No, President Zurich, no changes.
Would anyone like to move approval?
I'll move approval to the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll consider Dee Dee the second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. And just in case anyone can't tell, Dee Dee is joining us virtually this evening. Okay, public comment. This is the opportunity for anyone who would like to make comment to the board on any item not on this evening's agenda to do so. We will limit your public comment to 3 minutes. If for some reason we have so many public comments this evening, we will go for 30 minutes. And if we use up all that time, we'll delay the rest of the public comment until the end of the meeting. So I do have a public comment card here. Gigi Greenberger. Now I can see Dee Dee. I couldn't see Dee Dee before.
And I only have 6 copies, so I was just thinking the board members. Yeah. Okay, all right. Hello. Good evening, President Zurich and, hi. Oh, hello. I don't do this very often, so sorry about that. Right, okay. Good evening, President Zurich and TTUSD board members. My name is Gigi Greenberger, and my husband and I have 3 children in both Truckee High and Forest Charter School. I think we can all agree that there has been significant controversy surrounding the COVID-19 dilemma that we're all facing. Many of the policies and mandates coming from our government institutions have been firmly planted into our school districts without much questioning of their validity or common sense. The subject of face coverings is not free of such controversy. While the simple test of a COVID-2 reader should address anyone's interest in the subject matter, many people need more proof of these effects on our humanity. I refer you to a recent Stanford study released by the National Center of Biotechnology Information, which under the NIH showed that masks do absolutely nothing to help prevent the spread of COVID-19, and their use is even harmful. Dr. Baruch Van Schelboim of Stanford University, the author of the study, has cited 67 scholars, doctors, scientists, and a number of medical studies to support his scientific conclusions. I have a copy of the study for each of you to take away and review. I also have emailed it to the boardroom email address. Please read it, and I urge you to question. What are we doing to our developing youth in our district and our humanity as a whole? Not only are the children required to wear their face coverings in the classroom, but during sporting events, even outside, and playing in the band with the little slits in their mask, it's simply ludicrous and I believe inhumane. I ask you to please act in courage by taking this matter to those who govern your decisions, be it the Teachers Union, the Nevada, Placer County, the California Departments of Public Health. We need to collectively stand up for our own humanity. The myth and illusion of protection does not in any way justify the harm we are imposing on our children and our society. Dr. Baruch Vain-Shalboim's conclusion states, and you have it in your report, but I'm going to read it, the existing scientific evidence challenge the safety and efficacy of wearing face masks as preventative intervention for COVID-19. The data suggest that both medical and non-medical face masks are ineffective to block human-to-human transmission of viral and infectious disease such as SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19, supporting against the usage of face masks. Wearing face masks has been demonstrated to have substantial adverse physiological and psychological effects. These include hypoxia, hypercapnia, and those are the lack of oxygen and too much CO2, shortness of breath, increased acidity, and toxicity, activation of fear and stress response, rise in stress hormones, immunosuppression, fatigue, headaches, decline in cognitive performance, predisposition for viral and infectious illnesses, chronic stress, anxiety, and depression. Long-term consequences of wearing a face mask can cause health deterioration, developing and progression of chronic diseases and premature death. Governments, policymakers, and health organizations should utilize proper and scientific evidence-based approach with respect to wearing face masks when the latter is considered as preventative intervention for public health. Thank you kindly, and please consider the possibilities of having your minds changed and to make some action on this subject. I know that you all are subject to government policy, but I really believe that if all the schools got together in all the counties, it's happened in other places in the United States, we can win this. But you need to be convinced that it's not right. And I'm hoping that this report, which is a summation of everything I have looked at pretty much for the whole year, because it's never sat right with me and many others in this community. I know they're out there, and I know my time's up. But especially with school hours increasing and going back to school in the fall with increased hours, this is of vital importance, I believe, for our children. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we did receive your public comment along with Mr. Husser's and with the link. So I very much appreciate it. And I know that we will look at the study.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
There were, Joan will check for in-person public comment. There were the 2 emailed in public comments, and there are no voice message public comments at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. I will wait for just a moment for Joan. No, okay, great. Next, we get to hear from our Superintendent Chief Learning Officer with an update on the school district.
Thank you, President Zurich. So the one thing I wanted to talk about, I have several things, is that we are planning, the high school and middle school principals have been working on outlining the details regarding graduation and promotion ceremonies. And just recently on April 15th, the CDPH, along with Cal OSHA, gave all districts in the state an update on allowing in-person graduation. So what we initially thought would be limited, we can now expand with safety mitigation measures. So the principals and of all the schools, high school and middle school, will be distributing that information to their parent community. So we're really excited about that. They will all be outdoors. of course, if there's contingent inclement weather, we have backup plans for that. So that's one thing I wanted to share. And then another, yes, very much so. Another piece of news that we received is that on April 20th, the U.S. Department of Agriculture announced that the universal free schools meals would be extended through all of next school year till June 2022. So our food services department has been continuing to provide meals and will continue to do so since March. So we're very excited to hear about that. And then given the recent events that happened yesterday, staff got together and we wanted to make sure that our community knows that our students' social, emotional, and educational well-being continues to be at the center of our decisions and our services and our opportunities that we provide. So we're watching all of this unrest. We're watching everything that's happening in the nation, and we wanted to make sure that our community knows it's our responsibility to educate our students and communities and our community on ways to just practice civility and be able to speak their mind, which includes awareness, peaceful communication, empathy, and respect. Our staff at district level, most especially Mr. Santos's department, has put together a list of resources and tools that teachers and educators, our parents, and our community can use to educate their family members about the current social events. Our goal is to provide these tools and resources to guide our future generations to understand the peaceful practice of social civility of speaking up. And we will be sharing this list of resources on our TTUSD website, as well as with our TTUSD staff. So anytime a parent, a student, a community member has any questions on any topic, we're asking them to reach out to their counselors, reach out to the district office and to Mr. Santos's department. So we're really excited about being able to offer these resources to our educators. And then one thing I forgot to do when we talked about 5-day in person, and I would be remiss if I didn't do it today, is our school libraries, teacher librarians and our library media assistants. As you all know, our libraries are cornerstones of our schools, and they're the cornerstones of our school community. And our library staff is at the heart of that cornerstone. So I wanted just to reach out and thank the teacher librarians, the library media assistants for all their work, and apologize that I did not mention to them when we first talked about 5-day in person. They're just as important as everyone else. And lastly, Mr. Rivera, as always, things change, has 2 budget-related items, one which is very positive news that I'd like to ask him to share with the board and with the community this evening. Mr. Rivera?
Thank you. So I'll start with the good news. So most recently, the major rating agencies for general obligation bonds for K-12 school districts had changed the methodology and how they evaluate and assess those ratings for public school districts. And we were selected by Moody's, one of the major rating agencies, to do a reassessment and review of our current bond rating. And as you're aware, our general obligation bond rating for the district is already pretty high. It's a AA2, which is a very good rating for K-12 schools. That is something that has really helped us when we issue debt and general obligation bonds with regards to the cost of that debt, particularly the interest the interest that we pay on those, and that is something that really benefits our taxpayers when they look at paying back that debt service on those general obligation bonds. And through the most recent rating that we were selected for, they evaluate pretty heavily on our the district finances and fiscal solvency, as well as community support in our area, and also the local tax base and what our property values look like. So with that, they have increased our or upgraded our rating to a AA1. And some of the things that they cited as reasons were the district's prudent fiscal management. And that includes being our conservative budgeting strategy, as well as our adherence to a minimum reserve policy. Also, strong local support, as reflected with our bond elections, but also our local parcel taxes for Measure AA. And then in addition, our large tax base overall in our community. So we're very proud of that. This is something that will be beneficial to our taxpayers moving forward as well, as I mentioned, providing lower interest rates as we issue debt.
And I'd like to actually acknowledge Mr. Rivera's work and his department's work in getting this rating, which is exceptional.
It is. Excellent work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And for the last part, we did unfortunately receive some bad news that could have an impact on our budget. At our last meeting, I talked a little bit about the increase to our unemployment insurance rate, going from a 0.05% to 1.23%, which is an estimated value impact to our budget of about $500,000. So that was kind of some bad news that we received at the last meeting. Most recently, we've received information that indicates that our STRS rate will be going up and be increased above what we were projecting for next year and the second year out in 2022-23. So right now they're projecting that our STRS contribution employer rate will go from 15.92% to 16.92%. So that represents 1% applied to our overall certificated payroll, which the value of that is just a little bit under $300,000. And then we'll see a similar increase possibly the next year of another additional 1%. So that would be another $300,000. This is something that hasn't necessarily been approved by the STRS board yet, but they do feel like it's going to happen, and they're recommending that we do include that in our budget moving forward.
Does the board have any questions or? Okay, well, we wanted to provide you, and probably by the next meeting, we'll have another update regarding budget.
Right. So I guess I do have a question. We will need to pass the budget more than likely before there's a final decision, unless for some reason the May revise includes a payment for this. Is that right?
Yes, that's true. And in the past couple of years, the May revised budget or the adopted budget, the state has provided discounts to school districts for the STRS increases. So we're hopeful that that happens again. But for right now, as we plan and perform our budget development, we need to include that until we have information that says otherwise.
Okay, thank you. Any other board questions for either Superintendent Geisels or for Todd?
Okay.
Is that good?
Yeah, oh, yes, we're good. We're good? Yeah, we're fine.
Sorry, we're struggling here with the sound a little
The
bit
sound.
in
Yeah,
the room.
Tahoe Truckee Media is aware, and just if you could get as close to your mic as possible. Everybody can hear fine on the broadcast. It's just the house speakers
Okay.
we're working with.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So next I'll move us on to our consent agenda. Superintendent Geisels, does staff wish to pull any items from the consent agenda?
No, we do not.
Any board member wish to pull any items from the consent agenda? Would someone like to make a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, next, we are moving on to presentations, and we get to hear a presentation this evening from our Joint Powers Authority, the Tahoe Truckee Workforce Housing Agency, with the annual update and budget request.
Yes, it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Emily Vitas, who is here to present the Workforce Housing Agency budget and the annual update. Emily?
Thank you. Thank you, Carmen. Can everybody hear me okay? Should I
Yes.
speak louder for everyone?
Probably as
Okay.
loud as you can.
I'll speak as loudly as I can. And is there a presentation that we're putting up as well, Ed? Oh, okay. Okay. Perfect. So I'll just speak to the slides. I have them numbered on my notes. Before I get started, I do want to thank the Board of Trustees for your foresight in helping to found this agency. And I want to thank Carmen for your participation. Thank you, Ed. Your participation as a board member of the Workforce Housing Agency. It's been wonderful to have you, and I'm happy to be here this evening. It's been about 6 months to the day since we presented to you last. In that time, we have seen more growth in our community that has led to, a pretty astronomical increase in housing and rental prices and a historic decrease in housing stock. When we founded this agency a year ago, things did look a little different than they do today. At that time, our housing situation was concerning. And then we experienced what some have referred to as 10 years of change or growth in 6 months. And we are now working to combat the effects of the pandemic that it has had on many aspects of our community, with housing being one of the greatest impacted. Fortunately, the school district and 3 of our local districts had already taken action to address some of our housing concerns by founding the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency, which coincides nicely with the pandemic in the last year. But this has resulted in a year of progress and accomplishments on the housing front. Ed, should I be progressing slides myself? Okay, great. So I wanted to present today what we have accomplished since our founding, what we're working on currently, what the future of housing activities through the Workforce Housing Agency looks like. And before we move on to some of the accomplishments, I did want to share an update on the state of housing in the Truckee Tahoe region. So while you're looking at this slide and looking at these numbers, digesting these numbers, I do want to share 2 quotes that came in the last few days from 2 of your employees. Every time I need to leave a house due to a landlord selling, which has now happened 3 times, I've had to look for new housing. I am just constantly looking for new housing. And the second, I'm starting to give up searching, and I am considering leaving Truckee Tahoe next year. We're all hearing stories, reading the articles, but seeing the comparison, looking at these numbers from when I first started tracking last year to now, this is astounding. Every few days, we're seeing a Truckee Tahoe People post that talks about another local family that's losing their home. And locals are losing their rentals at an alarming rate. This is a weekly occurrence that we're seeing just through Truckee Tahoe People. How many other instances are happening that are not going public? The hospital also shared with me recently 2 of their employees who have been looking for housing in the Reno area. They're offering over our asking price, and they can't even purchase a home in Reno. So it's not just the Truckee Tahoe region. It has now started to bleed out to those outlying areas that used to be affordable for our employees. We need to act as quickly as possible and continue to support our employees with their housing needs and their housing searches. So when we presented 6 months ago, we provided an update on the Employee Housing Needs Survey that was completed in October of 2020. At that point, we shared some pretty concerning statistics that had all of us shaking our heads. I wanted to place these statistics in front of us again today as kind of a reminder of why we're here, why the mission of the Workforce Housing Agency is so important. So the top 3 percentages, really seem to be, to me, the most concerning in regards to the numbers of employees we may be losing sooner than later, either due to housing constraints or retirement. But all of those impact your employee numbers and needs for bringing new employees in, et cetera. And then combined, looking at all of these percentages, this represents a pretty large number of your employees. Thanks, Ed. Fortunately, the survey was not just dire, depressing statistics. It also resulted in a number of potential solutions, programs that your employees are interested in. Your employees told us what was important to them in this survey. They told us what kind of housing they currently have, what they would like to be in, what they can afford, where they would like to live. So we have all of this information in this 60-page report that tells us what our employees are looking for. My board came together in October to really digest this information, take these 20-plus solutions that were provided in the report, and develop a 5-year housing work plan as a direct result of what our employees said that they were looking for. So I apologize, this is probably small for you. I'm hopeful that you can see it in your packets. But this is just a brief glance at our 5-year housing work plan. The main areas of focus for us, thank you, Ed, are workforce housing development and a master leasing program. These are two opportunities that can result in our obtaining larger blocks of housing that we actually have some control over. So a pandemic or a major turn in the housing market will not affect them like what we've seen over the last few months with our employees being displaced at record numbers. Additionally, based on the results of the Employee Housing Needs Survey, we did feel like we owe it to our employees and our agencies to research and consider a few additional programs that will help combat the issues that we're seeing and potentially offset some of the activities that directly influence our employees' ability to afford and find housing. I'm happy to share, the full workforce or housing work plan with you after this if you'd be interested in seeing more detail than I've provided here on the slide. Thank you, Ed. So it's been a challenging year, but for us, it's been a year of progress and accomplishments. We are building something that no one else has, thanks to the school district and 3 of our other local districts. And with building, that takes time, resources, creativity, and commitment. So our first few months, I'm just going to walk us through these bullets pretty quickly. Our first few months were committed to founding. There's those operational, legal, financial, other processes that are needed to be put in place to operate effectively. But while we were completing those startup activities, we were working to execute the Employee Housing Needs Survey so that we could get that data back as quickly as possible. Additionally, in July, while we were working on the survey, we did launch 2 housing-related initiatives. The first, I say employee concierge, but really it's just a fancy way of saying we are acting as an outlet for your employees for everything that is housing. I'm hearing from employees on a weekly basis on a variety of housing-related issues, questions, etc. And there is now a place that they can go that is solely for housing, for when they're searching for a place to live or looking to understand the opportunities available to them. Additionally, we launched the Housing Match Program with Landing Locals to unlock existing housing units for our employees. And this, and then again, the housing work plan has already been touched upon. And then finally, the progress we've made with, regional partners, the town of Truckee, the counties, Martis Fund, some other kind of housing-focused entities, and local developers has resulted in some good collaborations. So we're talking with the town and the county on a weekly basis about potential opportunities we can pursue together or individually. And I'm meeting with developers to really understand what's in the pipeline as it relates to new construction. Is there an opportunity to master lease larger blocks of units that we can access for our employees, based on upcoming or existing projects? And then these developer relationships are also important as we think about workforce housing development. It would be nice to have a pipeline of developers as we determine parcels that we can build on and go out with RFPs for construction. This is my favorite slide. So this represents all the interactions that we've had with employees in the last 9 months. So as I mentioned, those first few months were really taken up with founding activities, and in July we really started to jump into the housing portion of our work. Oh, is that okay? Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Okay, great. We don't have to stop. Yeah. So on the employee concierge, while we don't know how many houses our concierge services have directly impacted, is that okay?
We'll see. Tahoe Truckee Media is working on in the back, adjusting.
Perfect. Oh, that's okay. So on the employee concierge, we don't know how many employees have directly received or accessed housing from these activities, though I am planning on implementing a survey once we're kind of 1 year into these activities to understand how many people actually found housing through the resources that we're providing to employees when they reach out to us. On the Housing Match Program, we have connected 9 locals and their families with long-term homes. And then a few weeks back on this housing purchase line, we heard from the town of Truckee that there was a deed-restricted home coming available. We were able to respond quickly and get the opportunity out to our employees that day. And it resulted in 2 airport employees submitting their information as applicants 1 and 2. As of April 15th, I was told that they were going with the first applicant, and one of our airport employees will be purchasing his first home. I was also told by the HR director at the airport that she saw him in the parking lot that day, and he was shaking with excitement. You know, they've been looking for a house for a year. They were looking to move to Auburn. They moved to Reno, and they get to move back to Truckee and own their first home. On Hopkins Village, you know, this is the 40 units that are being developed out on Schaefer Mill Road out by Martis Camp. And I've made the interest list smaller since I'm not really counting that in our overall impact. But we have been pushing this program really hard with your employees. It's a $550,000 product, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and there are a number of employees interested in this product. From our efforts, we have helped 5 employees become qualified or access that qualified buyers list. You know, that's employees that are owning homes. If we can help an employee purchase a home, we can ensure longevity, and hopefully that means less turnover, higher satisfaction, you know, higher well-being, et cetera. So in the last 9 months, we have helped over 80 employees on their housing journeys, whatever they may be. And 10 of those employees, as a direct result of our efforts, have accessed long-term homes. In the next few months, I'm hopeful that we're going to see that 5 or maybe 6 qualified buyers for Hopkins Village be able to purchase some of them their first homes as well. So our goal, you may have seen in the housing work plan that I included, our goal for the calendar year of 2021 was to help 17 employees directly access housing. And with where we are right now, it looks like we will be able to achieve that number by July of this year, which is really exciting. So what's next? You know, what are we working on right now? What are kind of the big things that we know we need to focus on with the shift we've seen in the last year and the employee housing needs survey, et cetera? I've really touched upon these, but you know, those first 2 programs, they don't require, you know, the master leasing program does require a lot of upfront, you know, development and some legal support, et cetera, to make sure that we're building that in a way that it ensures longevity and success. But the employee education programs, they don't require much. It's us doing the research on behalf of our employees because they have families and they have full-time jobs. And if we can help them understand a pathway to ownership or rebates that are available to existing homeowners, that's a resource we can provide on our website to those employees. And then finally, these last 2, you know, our North Star is the development of workforce housing. We know that that is something that we can actually have an impact and have control over, and it's something that we need to be working towards. So it does take a little bit longer to develop workforce housing, and so we need to focus on opportunities that provide short-term solutions for our employees. So we are currently working through a land mapping exercise where we're looking at all agency-owned land and identifying which of those parcels we may be able to develop workforce housing on. We are about a month out from hearing that report and seeing that short list of parcels. And then finally, you may have heard in December of 2020, we heard from the town of Truckee, Placer County, and Nevada County that they were interested in joining the Workforce Housing Agency as member agencies. Since then, we've been working with the consultant that helped us found the Workforce Housing Agency to understand if there were conflicts of interest, if there was, you know, challenges that we need to be concerned by when we look at or consider bringing in new member agencies, especially entitlement agencies. And the board will be taking action on that item at the May board meeting as well as to if we are going to be welcoming those new member agencies. And additionally, you know, the welcoming of new member agencies brings additional resources. So whether it's funding, capacity on the staff side of things, or access to their housing experts. On the funding side of things, you know, bringing new member agencies will offset some of the numbers that you're seeing on the member contributions slide we have here. So keep that in mind as we're talking through these numbers tonight. If we were to bring in new member agencies, we'd probably see about $15,000 or $20,000 less on this line item for TTUSD. Now, our member calculations are calculated based on employee count. Additionally, if you compare those numbers that we were just looking at on the previous slide of how many employees have been served, the percentages are almost exact. So it's nice to see that those 2 things are kind of coinciding with each other. So tonight, we're not looking for approval of the overall budget, though I did provide it in your board packets. You'd have an understanding of what these numbers are contributing to. But I am happy to answer questions on any of the budget stuff. But tonight we are asking that the Board of Trustees continue to support our efforts to bring housing solutions to your employees through the member contribution that is shown here on this slide. I want to thank you for recognizing this issue and participating as a founding member of the Workforce Housing Agency. I also want to mention that tonight my board chair, Harry Weiss, is here with me, and I'd like to welcome him either to join and make any comments or help me in answering any questions that you have. Harry, did you want to make comments now?
Just share a couple maybe.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. Don't go far because we may have questions.
Good evening, Board President and Board of Trustee members. First, I want to offer a very sincere thank you to your board, to the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District for being a key pivotal partner with the 3 other agencies here in our region. And as Emily shared, this is a first for government agencies to come together and do this. We've seen for-profit companies such as Tesla, do this more than a couple of years ago in the Reno market, but for government agencies to come together and do something that's so critically important, and I think we're only at chapter 1 of a critical book of escalation of challenge. I wish there was one simple math problem that could solve this dilemma. I can share with you my personal view. It's one of the most complex problems any of our organizations may ever face. So we really thank you for joining us in that effort. Number 2, I really wanted to share that we are here as a workforce housing agency to really advocate for all of your workforce of the Unified School District and to help overcome obstacles relative to any approval agency. That's who we are as individuals, underlying partners, and who we are as a JPA. We want your employees to have the very best that can be had in a very tough environment here. And we're happy to spend whatever time that takes or requires in different approval settings to try to overcome some pretty significant obstacles. And we know that there's so many approval hurdles that are required to make the progress we all desire here. The other thing that I would really share is one of the reasons we came together as a Tahoe Truckee, as a Truckee Tahoe Workforce Agency, is that we clearly understood that coming together in a collaboration mode is far less expensive than what the shrewdest manager could do or the shrewdest negotiator could ever do, in that we're able to share these costs, and this allows the Unified School District to receive the greatest knowledge that's ever growing, maybe at 1/3 or less of the actual cost of doing that. As we feel like that collaboration is really important, and we really appreciate that as well. Those are really some of the first comments that we have. I think there are some other school districts that have gone before us, not in a JPA kind of format, but they tried to tackle it alone. I think certainly Mountain View has done some great things, and we believe the Sacramento School District has done some things, even including a path to ownership, and we'd like to learn more about that down the road. So I thought Emily did a nice presentation to share with you. I think a lot was accomplished during a tough pandemic year. Truly, we want a lot more progress. We're all vulnerable of having team members living in a cramped vehicle or something like that. And we're here to try to see what we can do together with our agencies and an increased number of agencies to really improve the quality of life for our employees. You saw those lists of retirements and other potential changes. And so as we reflect on our workforce, those 10-year employees, those 20-year, those 30-year employees as they leave, and as we think of the difficulty of their successors coming in and the household budget stress that they're going to feel versus individuals that were here 10, 20, or 30 years, we're seeing that in all of our companies that are partners here, and we know it's a big challenge. So we thank you and we encourage you, and we think it's going to be an exciting journey, but a very tough journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. very much appreciate it. Okay, board, questions or comments? Kirsten, you want to start us off?
I just have a quick question about the contribution rate for this page right here.
Yep.
Is that calculated based on the employee count? Is it a percentage? Okay, so it's proportionate to the number of employees we have.
Yeah.
And then that including certificated and classified, right? I'm just guessing that, right? And management, okay.
So we actually went back to our member agencies a few months ago and also asked them to include any contract, employees that are providing ongoing services to our special districts. The hospital was actually the only district that had a large number of contractors, which did increase I believe we're at 1372 for the hospital, which also increased their member contribution, but they wanted to make sure that their contribution was fair in the people that we are trying to provide housing services to.
And then your budget, these numbers are basically to pay for staff, I'm assuming, in addition to, where does that money go exactly?
Yeah, so I included our draft budget in I think it's in your board packet.
Yeah, it's in the board package, but
Okay, great.
if you could just review it, that'd be great.
Yeah. So we have operations and housing activities, which are making up the total line item that you're seeing at the bottom of our budget. And so with operational, we're looking at all of the administrative costs, employee expenses, benefits, et cetera. I am employed through the hospital district. I'm not an employee of the Workforce Housing Agency. And so we wanted to do that to kind of offset some of the expenses that the agency could incur by having to do all of the employment activities that are required. So I am, yes, employed by the hospital. So on the operations side, we're looking at payroll and employee benefits, administrative expenses, marketing and advertising, professional services, so our accounting team that we've brought on supporting strategies, legal team, BBK, our Best and Krieger, and then website services, website designer. Then we move into the housing programs, which is that other segment of the expense. And you'll see that there's a lot of zeros there. That's because a lot of the programs that we're working on solely require staff time. So that's my time and potentially a part-time employee or a 10-hour-a-week contract that we may be bringing on next year to support us in the employee concierge services and some of these other staff time housing programs that you're looking at. And then the two large line items in the housing program section, one is specific to development activities, and the second is specific to an incentive program through the Housing Match Program with Landing Locals. And the housing development line item is to help us with further analysis of those parcels that I'd mentioned that we're working to identify right now through the land mapping exercise. So once you identify those parcels, we can identify them based on environmental issues and constraints and location, et cetera. But we really are going to need to understand the larger concerns, the larger analysis of those parcels before we move forward with putting housing on them. So this kind of backfills that expense, knowing that that's coming down the pipeline. On the Housing Match Program, the $75,000, we are proud of our partnership with Landing. We are looking at about one match per month. But the town of Truckee executed an incentive program with Landing, and they have seen increased numbers compared to the program that we currently have with them. So we were talking with the town of Truckee and Placer County actually about, is there a way that we can do a regional incentive program, and these funds could be used to then unlock additional housing for the employees only of our member agencies. So those are the two big housing items you see there. The pathway to ownership item is to provide, working with mortgage and real estate agencies to provide education to our employees through potential workshops or instruction, because 34% of our employees that responded to the survey did say they were looking for educational programs to help them understand how they can afford to purchase a home, what is a mortgage and what are all the pieces, a number of different activities that would be educational in nature. So that's what makes up the total amount that you see there on the budget, and I'm happy to answer further questions.
Yeah, well, I guess the only reason I was asking that is because I'm trying to think about, like the grocery stores, the ski areas, like we're a resort community, and the restaurants, and they're also really struggling
Yes.
to find housing for their employees. And and to the point where they're like busing employees up in the wintertime
Correct.
from Reno,
Yes.
you know? So I'm kind of, have you invited them to the table as well? Is there a way to bring them into the conversation?
Yes, yeah, a few things there. I'm glad you brought that up. So our conversations with the town of Truckee and Placer County, you know, they are serving the general public. They have a, you know, they are working with all of their constituents, not solely their employees. So there is a general public component to many of the programs that we're also considering, and we're talking with them frequently about what that looks like. You know, the example of the town of Truckee's incentive program and our participating solely as a way to support the JPA employees is a good example of that. So the town of Truckee's program will continue to serve the general public, while our program will help serve the JPA employees. Additionally, on that item, gosh, I forgot where I was going with it. If it comes back, I'll bring it back up.
Okay, thanks. I feel much better knowing that you're inviting them to the table and that it's a collaborative effort.
Yes,
Thank you.
and I did want to mention, thank you, I just remembered the second item is in that member agency expansion opportunity of bringing the town and the counties to the table. You know, our board is talking about, you know, do we need to expand our scope at some point down the line? Is there a percentage of general public services we could provide as a set aside that do not affect the services we're providing our employees, but do help serve the general public? Could it be a small percentage of each workforce housing development that we're working on, and we partner with other agencies that helps with costs, but it also helps our general public access housing as well?
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Ed, can you make it so we can see Dee Dee, please? Dee Dee, questions? Comments, questions?
Thanks. Am I on?
You're on. You're on.
All right. Justin, thank you for asking for other people. I was actually making that same note as to who else is going to be on board with us. And as much as this is it's a tough thing to ignore, there's no way we can ignore it. I was thinking how I'm happy that we were involved in the beginning and supporting the cause. It's so far out of our, you know, jurisdiction in terms of can we fix this as a Tahoe Unified School District. I mean, it's way beyond us, and I think we've all addressed that. But I do think that it's more than just the entities that are on the slate, and I think it did take some people to start this ball rolling, but I feel that it is something that is bigger than us. So how do we get more people involved? And I think it's got to be a big pendulum swing to get more people on the same page. And it's not necessarily our little town that's going to do it. It's got to be beyond us, I think. And so it's a tough one because I do think that we need to be doing this. But I think that somehow we've got to get again, you can't tell someone not to buy $1 million house when they want to buy $1 million house that's only worth $500,000. So it's not necessarily an easy answer, and I appreciate getting more people involved. And I think it's not any one entity's problem. I think it's across the board. Everyone's in the same dire straits. The only question that I was going to say, and maybe this is a Todd question in terms of just reformation as to where this the amount that you're requesting, where would that come from out of our budget? And is that something that we've potentially, I know we were in this for 3 years originally. I guess my question is, where would this money be coming from out of our current budget?
Yeah, Dee Dee, this would come from our unrestricted general fund. And currently, because there's a lot of unknowns with what the operating costs would be of the agency moving into this fiscal year, we had budgeted approximately $35,000. So this would be an increase from that.
Thank you. I have no further questions on that.
Who's next?
Hi, Emily.
Hey.
I actually have a procedural question. I was looking in my company files. I don't know, it looks like we're going to take action. And I don't know if I've translated for you guys. I know I've done the Mountain Housing Council, but I get a lot of stuff from the Community Foundation. Would I have received money from you and now I'm going, you know what I'm saying? I just want to make sure there's no conflict.
Oh.
And Chris, you and I have worked together through Mountain Housing Council, and we're currently working together on the Truckee Library, Friends of the
Yes,
Truckee Library.
okay,
So you and I
so-
have not contracted
No
through the
conflict.
Workforce Housing Agency.
Okay, perfect.
But on everything else that we both do, yes.
Yes, okay, good, thank you. I just wanted to be clear before this comes up for vote. I'm like, there's
No,
nothing here from them.
Thank you for bringing that, and it's really
Yeah.
nice to meet you in person.
Likewise.
After all these years.
Yes,
Yeah.
likewise. Okay, I'm good with the presentation and the money requested and all that. No questions, thank you.
There's no doubt that we have a housing problem. They're not affordable, and there just aren't enough of them. And that's the simple solution. How do we get more? I think a lot of the side stuff you're going into to compete with other people to get preferential treatment for our employees, I think that's a waste of time. Yeah, it's nice for employees, but it isn't helping the problem at all. I think the only solution is more units, be they apartments or homes. A year and 9 months ago, when our previous superintendent brought this to us, he asked for $85,000 startup funding. And I had a huge problem with that at the time. I figured at that time, when it's asking for this kind of money, if you compare that to a venture capital plea, you would have passed through the feasibility study to say, is this possible to do? And so I brought that up to our previous superintendent at the time, saying, we don't even know if this is feasible. We don't know if with free land, we could build apartments, 1 room, bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, that people would want to rent for a price that they could afford. We don't know that. And we still don't. Here, a year and 9 months later, we still don't know that. And my feeling about this kind of a program is we should be concentrating on building apartment. That's the other thing. We don't know if we should do apartments so that we can attract new teachers, or should we be building homes so that existing employees can have a better living or more affordable living. We haven't decided what. And how can we do anything if we haven't decided these things? So I'm very reluctant about this whole thing now being a year and 9 months old, and we still don't know if it's doable. And by the way, on your survey, 17% of TTUSD employees planning to retire in the next 5 years. That's normal. If they work 30 years here, that's exactly how many have to leave in 5 years. So this is a little out of context too, without a lot of thinking about what this program is about and how we ought to do it. So I'm not in favor of it. And what I would need to see is a feasibility plan to say, yes, that piece of land out there, just hypothetically 10 acres, and you can put 40 units on it, and it's going to cost this much, and they're going to be 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and we've passed it by new employees to say, would you rent this for this much money? And they say yes. I'd say go for it. Godspeed, as fast as you can. We don't have that plan, and I looked at your plan for next year, and I don't see any of that in there. I see vague kind of comments about this is the plan, but there's no plan. So I spoke to, for those of you who don't know, I spoke to Kim and Emily for an hour, and hopefully she passed some of that on to you, Mr. Weiss. And so there's a lot more detail behind it, but that's my feeling.
Thank you. Are there other questions I can answer now, or I mean,
I'd like
I'm
you
happy
to-
to
I'd like you to
talk
come-
through some of them.
I'd like you to come back in a month and show a feasibility study of a.
Well, and my response there would be, we do have all of the pieces, and I'd be happy to share the extended work plan with you. I don't want to include all that stuff in your board packets, but I'm happy to share the housing development piece of the work plan that actually does detail every step we're going to take at which time throughout the next 6 months to get us to exactly what you're saying. So we have the pieces, we have what our employees are asking for, we have spreadsheets of the amounts they say they can afford, the number of rooms that they are looking for. We have the land mapping exercise that is identifying those parcels. So we are working on all of the steps, but all the pieces need to be put together. And 12 months is not enough time to do all of that. You know, housing takes a long time and it's very expensive. And we're working as quickly as we can to do exactly what you're proposing, which is get to a place where we know exactly what the amount is and, you know, what that's going to look like for each of our member agencies. So we are taking those steps. We're just not there yet. We will be in 2020 based on the detailed plan that we have on the housing development side. And I will tell you, housing development is my number one activity in my work on a daily basis, knowing that that is, you know, the way that we can greatly impact housing for our employees that we have control over. So we're getting there.
Show me.
Thank you. So I have comments and maybe I have questions. First of all, I've been proud of Mr. Weiss and Dr. Leary and Kevin Smith and the PUD leadership in being innovative and making this happen. Because unless we're brave and innovative, nothing's going to change. And I'm super proud of these organizations for taking this step and doing something different that very few people have stepped up to. So I'm just fundamentally proud of trying. And I also know, speaking of trying, how trying this year was in the workplace and in the housing market, and to try to get anything done besides survival in the workplace was pretty remarkable. I don't agree with you, Galen, on the myriad of services, and I don't agree that we can build our way out of this. I think that it is a combination of providing some type of product that is affordable, and I think we have the opportunity to do that with the JPA, in particular because some of us agencies own property that could be used to be built on. And then our $112,000 goes away because we've contributed a X of value in property. So I think that is one opportunity. I also think all of these other things that we're doing help each family as we go along. And I think 1 or 10 or 12 is better than 0. And it is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. Everybody needs something different and a different level of help and have different desires in how they want to live. And I've seen this I've seen that play out at work over and over again. So I'm actually proud of those, and especially because any building we know is going to take a period of time. So anything we can do with our time in the interim, like you were saying, you have $0 in those line items. That's because we already have you as an employee, and so you're helping our employees, right? And I think, as far as the turnover thought, that's true, but I'm retiring next month, or in a month, right? Well, I already have my house, and whoever the new administrative services director is for the town, if they have to move here, they have to find a place to live. And they're not going to find their house for what I bought my house for in 1993.
Right.
So that's the issue with the turnover is as we have our normal turnover, how are we going to get people to come here and live here? I deal with this at work in my human resource function. So I believe very strongly that I want this community to be a real place with real people living here, not only second homeowners and millionaires. That's not the place I moved to. And I'm so terrified that we're moving to something else There's not a lot we can, I know market forces are really strong, and I feel that whatever we can do to keep our employees going is positive. And I also don't feel that we're competing, because what we're trying to do, so for instance, the Locals Landing Program, that is not competing against each other, but rather convincing homeowners not to short-term rent their homes, but to long-term rent their homes. So taking a short-term rental off the market and getting a family into that. So we're not actually competing against, pitting one against the other, but creating a larger inventory of long-term home opportunities. So anyway, I know Galen and I hardly ever disagree, but we happen to disagree on this one, and that's okay. That's part of being on a board. But I just wanted to share kind of my thoughts in relation to this really compelling issue. So I don't think I have a question in there. Oh, I do. I have one other comment. Maybe this isn't a question, but I love Galen's analytical way of thinking, and he wants a proof. He wants to be able to say, we can make this pencil. I think we have a proof of concept, actually, with Hopkins Ranch. And that was free land, right, that was donated way back when Martis Valley was developed. And it had already some entitlements related to housing, so it was a little bit ahead of the game. Mm-hmm. But that's a for-profit developer who is right now putting a product on the ground that, even though it's $550,000, that seems really high, but we can make it work. And it's 180% of average median income, so that's $124,000 for a couple. So there is a proof of concept out there. But I'm really anxious, and I'm going to hold you guys to, at the end of 2021,
Thank you.
I really want to
2021.
see the land use, the alternatives having been analyzed, having an RFP out there with potential builders who tell us this is what we can do on this land. Because I do think that, and then we start the hard part of actually getting it permitted and built.
Correct.
So that's what I'm hoping for, is that by the end of this year, calendar year, we have a lot more information on that piece of it. And in the meantime, we continue to do all this other stuff, one family at a time. So, I totally get what you're saying, and I totally appreciate that. So those are my thoughts anyway. Mr. Weiss, I saw that you maybe wanted to say something else, and while you're walking up, Dee Dee?
I just was going to ask, is there, and I know this is an action item, and the reason I had asked Todd in reference to the amount in our budget is that I guess I would be comfortable with what our budget was put out there, but I'm not sure if I'm comfortable going way above our budget at this point. So is there a way to strategically do that, or that's just a question on how to process?
Right, part of the challenge is that when we joined the JPA, we agreed to this methodology of allocating the costs. And I think there could, I've shared with Emily, we're the most resource constrained of the 4 agencies that are involved, for sure. And, maybe, I think hopefully over time we can talk about how that works. But we did go into it with our eyes open, that this allocation based on employees. And so, but that's a great question, Dee Dee.
So I guess are we that far off? Because it seems like there's a bigger gap in terms of what we had adjusted and what we said. And then if it's again, I guess the question is, if we are going to go above our allocated budget line item, where does that come from?
Here, you want me to?
They're talking about their budget, right?
Yeah, our budget, yeah.
Well, the only thing I would say about the budget is when we were planning our budget for the current fiscal year, there was a lot of unknowns with what the ongoing operating costs would look like. This agency was in its very early stages. So we did put a fairly nominal amount in there, not really realizing what it was going to turn into and what the additional needs would be for the operations of the workforce housing agency. So I think it was always with the thought that we probably would be doing some adjustments to that once we got some real hard numbers. There is a disparity, obviously, to what we were originally planning, to what the current ask is for the contribution. I want to say it's $80,000 difference. So it is substantial, but at the same time, I think we knew that coming into it, that there could be additional costs that we incur. And the way I feel about it is that, there's a realization that you do have to spend some money in order to start some momentum and make things happen. And I think if we really were sticking to a very nominal budget, then we'd be treading water. We wouldn't be moving forward. So those are just my thoughts on it.
Thank you very much, Doug. I guess, where would we find this money? Like, I don't get how we're going to get it if we don't have it.
Yeah, I think Todd said the general fund, so to come out of the fund balance.
The unrestricted general fund, I do feel we can absorb it. We do include in our projections for budget for, this would go in the professional services category. So we do include some annual inflators in there as well. So I think we'd be okay.
Thank you. I guess I didn't hear that. Thank you.
President and Director Larson, I respect your wish and desire to have feasibility studies, and I actually agree with you. On any building projects we do, we're going to want to see what is that customized feasibility study of any building project we do. We're not there right now. We talked, you mentioned the one project that 5 or 6 of our families have been able to get a hold of that was developed with other people's money and so forth. But if it's going to be a project that we develop, we're going to want to see a true feasibility study on that. We're also looking at policies for our workforce employees, as to, market may be way up here, but, what would we define as kind of a reasonable ceiling for total household income too, that should be of after tax, household income that could be reasonably spent on housing. So that's a policy issue our JPA is going to be looking at as well. But every development that's actual construction will have to have a unique feasibility study. And everyone's going to be unique because they're all going to be different. So it won't just be one size. Thank you.
Thank you. Other board questions? So we are looking for a public comment on this.
Just checking. There's no public comment on this item.
Nobody's rushed in from the outside that we know of? Okay.
The gym is empty.
Thank you. So would someone like to make a motion to move forward with this for this next year?
Is it an action item?
It is, yes.
Okay, so I'll move approval that we move forward with the support of the Tahoe Truckee Workforce Housing Agency.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye. Tiny houses.
I'll say yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate spending
everybody's comments,
your time
questions.
here.
Yeah, thank you. Should I wipe this?
We gotcha.
Thank you for coming.
Okay. Headache. Okay, next, a nice positive thing. We're going to recognize our school bus drivers. Superintendent Geisels.
Yes. So annually, the fourth Tuesday of every April, the people of California officially recognize all school bus drivers for their continued and excellent services to the youth of the state. These drivers are deserving of special public recognition at the highest commendations. The California Association of School Transportation Officials is a professional organization that promotes safe pupil transportation and advocates for continued high standards for California school bus drivers. And I can tell you, having visited the Transportation Department, we live and breathe this. This resolution would designate April 27th, 2021 as School Bus Drivers Day in California in order to draw special public attention to school bus drivers for their continued and excellent services to pupils. And I would just like to say that to many of our students in TTUSD, our school bus drivers are sometimes the first smiling adult they see each morning and the last before they get home. Thank you for always braving the weather to get our kids safely where they need to be while being a shining example as you do it. So staff is requesting that the board approve resolution number 14-2021, School Bus Drivers Day, April 27, 2021.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Any public comment?
No comment on this item.
I couldn't think of a more deserving team than our bus drivers. They are amazing. So would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution number 14, School Bus Drivers Day.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Dee Dee's temporarily off screen, so it's 4-0 Lupita. Thank you. And then we have the first reading of a proposed new high school course, Gone Boarding 2.
Yes. So to provide the additional information, we have Ms. Valerie Simpson here, who can give you some highlights of this.
Oh, wait, I have to keep this on. I was just thinking. No, we are really excited. I know Truckee High School is very excited, and the students and teacher is as well. So when we started, when Truckee High School embarked on the Gone Boarding program, the vision of the instructional leader, Logan Maloney, the principal, is really to build this program out so that it reflected all levels of like the building and the testing and the marketing of just the whole process. And so I'm really excited to be able to have this Gone Boarding 2 class because it supports just the enthusiasm of the students that are in there, as well as providing opportunities for students to be creative and to show their love of learning just in maybe a different way than what we traditionally may expect from our schools and our students. So I'm just very excited about it, and I hope that we can move this forward and continue to expand not only this course, but all of our CTE pathways so that we are developing them into pathways that truly are working for our students and our business and community partners. So,
thank you. Questions? I appreciated the board materials because at first I was like, so what else is there to make it a 2? And now I was able to see from that what else there was and why that made it, gave more job skills and more critical thinking and design. So thank you. So this is a first read. Dee Dee, you have your hand up.
I was just going to say that again, this is me flipping on the other side of the high school side. If you do not go to boarding 1, can you go into boarding 2? And the answer is probably no, correct?
I would say it's probably no. I don't know for sure, but it definitely, like, there's that, in the pathways, how you have the first intro level,
Right,
and then you go to the second. Yeah, exactly.
Was there any, and the other question I would ask is was there any interest in terms of getting any of our children from the North Tahoe High School side over to that option of a boarding class for their students as well?
So if I understand your question, as far as having North Tahoe High students come to Truckee High for the course, is that what you're asking?
Because we talked about it at one point, trying to see if we could offer some of those
Yeah.
classes to our other students that are in the district, but that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we're able to do that due to like the biggest, well, one of the big barriers, right, is the distance, but the schedule. We have North Tahoe High on the 6-period day and Truckee High on the block. That's probably the more challenging barrier.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then the final question was just in reference to, and I apologize if I'm not asking beforehand, but internet in Vermont when it's snowing and in the boonies. What about, I'm just trying to think of how we ended up getting that class pushed forward. And the reason I'm asking all these is I want to be able to see that we can do some of that in the the North Tahoe High School as well for our same athletes, for our students. Was there somebody that put forth that proposal? Was that just a teacher that was in that boarding one class that did that?
I do not, you mean the second level course?
Yeah,
Or just,
yeah. Was that just presented?
No, it actually really was,
miss-
part of when Logan Maloney brought the program to our district, the vision was to be able to create these different levels so that students were really taking it from, they're not out chopping down the tree, but they're like, they're starting with the raw material and then taking it through that whole cycle to when Logan and I first talked about it, we were like, we could, the kids could sell their boards and they could be, really testing it for PE and math, and there was just a lot of cool different ways to go with it, so.
Awesome, thank you.
So then this will come back to us. Great.
Yes,
Any
it'll
other
come back.
questions or comments? Okay, next we have a public hearing, and that public hearing is to take public comment regarding the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District's initial proposal to our Classified School Employees Association, Chapter 383, and the other way, CSCA's initial proposal to TTUSD regarding 2021 negotiations.
Yes, Ms. Apatini, do you have any additional details you'd like to add? Okay.
Do any board members have any questions? Okay, I'm going to officially open the public hearing. Do we have any public comments?
There's no public comment on this item.
Okay, I will close the public hearing. Thank you very much. We look forward to working with the CSCA. And then I saw nothing in the homework on the board policy, is that correct?
Correct.
So can we move this forward, you all, to the consent agenda for the next meeting? Yes? Okay, terrific. Next, we have comments of board members. I
actually don't have a lot to report. No. All good.
Galen?
No, I've got nothing.
That's kind of how I feel too. You know what? Next year, I want to be back to normal, doing lots of good stuff that we get to report, especially being at the schools. I have to say, obviously I have a daughter graduating this year. I'm so happy about graduation, so that's great news. And great news for our kids, right? Then that we get to have the graduation, and I want to appreciate all the hard work. I know everything is more work this year, so that too. Kirsten?
I just wanted to acknowledge some of the public comments that were made regarding housing and compensation and the correlation. And I think that one of the assumptions that I really just wanted to sort of push back on is the fact that we had this presentation tonight really highlights the fact that we're in a crisis in this community. And I can't really talk with a mask on, so I think it's just really important to understand, I think that we're hearing the public comments about the housing crisis and how people want to purchase homes here. And I just want to make sure we make the clear distinction that our salary structure may or may not be able to influence that outcome.
Yep.
And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Kirsten. Dee Dee, from the wilds of Vermont.
You guys realize how late it is here in Vermont right now? No, I have not much to report. I came back for a couple weeks to visit family back here, and everyone got COVID shot, so we were able to mingle. So I'm headed back out next week. I will be home, but I know I haven't seen anybody or anything, but I'm good.
Great. We'll look forward to seeing you in person next time. Okay, that's it for this evening. Thank you all very much.